Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Workplace Delight. And today I get the delight of interviewing my friend Kenny Katzgrau, who is the creator of Broadstreet, which is an ad serving platform and much more, and also the publisher of Red Bank Green, which is a hyperlocal uh, media outlet in Jersey. And his one thing he wants you to know about him is that he loves to think deeply and get to the truth to where he gets so deep with the truth that it turns into conviction. So this is a man who really thinks. So welcome to the show, Kenny.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Johnny.
Always good to see you, man. We have the deepest of deep conversations every single time. We can't help it.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's so important to, have great people such as yourself to really think deep with because it really helps. You need all kinds of perspectives and like someone else's like way of thinking things. Like some things you've said I've just chewed on and thought about for, for a long time or I'm still working on.
I love it when you have relationships that are just mutual benefit because I would say the same thing about you. I'd say even that
Mhm.
webinar we just recently did, man, it's funny because I was helping you host it, but I also was learning.
Yeah.
And so I've got new things to learn and apply from spending time with you. So it's definitely mutual. One thing I've noticed as I've begun to dig in with your company, Kenny actually hired me to do some staff development at his company through my book, The Superpower Quest, coming up here in April. And so I've been doing my research and kind of interviewing Kenny and even talking to some of his people. It's just become very clear to me that he has such a healthy workplace culture, like a truly remarkable, extraordinary workplace culture. People that are super bought in. How many employees are you right now, Kenny?
About 15.
About 15. So 15 employees. Um, People are bought in. There's passion. There's excitement. There's a sense of purpose. And so I was like, okay, I really got to interview this guy for workplace delight because this is the conversation about how do we surpass workplace satisfaction or employee satisfaction and get to this place of delight, like just radical delight, lavish, out of control, like people actually being happy and joyful at work, right? And so I want to follow the thread there. This is an investigation of how did you do that, Kenny? So do you mind telling us a little bit about the origin story, not necessarily of Broad Street or RBG,
Mhm.
because we've done that before, but more your journey towards being a good leader and creating a healthy culture.
Right. Well, I think that, and just speaking like very candidly, I think that it really just kind of starts with like why you do what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like it's totally valid that the reason you got into doing something is not the reason that you ended up staying with it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of founders out there, such as myself, like, I won't talk about the origin story, but I will talk about like the origin of the motivation, which is like
Yeah.
when I started a company, like Broadstreet wasn't the first one that I'd started. I'd started a few others, but like, why did I want to do it? Like because I wanted to make a lot of money. Like,
Yeah.
like that's what a lot of people coming out. I didn't want to change the world yet. Like, I mean, I did. I wanted to make a lot of money and change the world in the process, but like that was that kind of like youthful like I'm gonna kill it mindset
Yeah.
was the reason that I started Broad Street. And but like that goes away pretty quickly once you run into headwinds,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if you're purely driven by money, then what eventually happens was when things get hard, like you kind of give up,
Yeah.
right? And money, there's like actually something that the reason like money like fundamentally talk about things that I've thought a lot about. I've thought
Yeah.
about like why can't money like really be a fundamental driver of motivation for like anybody. And which is crazy because in the business world it's sprinkled in as like motivation commission, like all that kind of stuff. But like money is actually so dependent on everyone else's idea of its value,
Yeah.
right? So it's like you have like all of your motivations basically sitting atop this sandbar.
Yeah.
And like, if nobody else thought the big pile of money was worth anything, you would stop thinking it was worth anything, and then so your motivation would totally evaporate, right? So
Yeah.
it's like it's this fundamental thing that creates a problem is that anytime we set up money as our motivation, like it, there's going to be a problem. And so
Yeah.
when things get hard, like we're gonna not care about it so much anymore. So anyway, when things got hard at Broadsheet, which they inevitably did, because you can't really start a company or do anything with a group of people without it eventually getting hard. You have your
Yeah.
challenges. part of me started to think like, well, like, do I want to keep doing this? Right.
Mm,
And then I kind of had to like look around and say that like, well, like there are people who get some real value out of what I do, and like I'm helping them along. And look at the people in this industry who, I'd gotten a couple emails from people over the years who said, "Man, I wouldn't be in business if it wasn't for you guys." Like the
yeah,
work of my company was doing, and I started to realize that like even if I was doing it for the wrong reasons, I was still accidentally having like the right impact. It was like I was chasing money, but like, all of the good that was coming out of it was like coming out of it as a side effect,
yeah,
which is totally backwards.
yeah,
And then I started to like I said like wait a second, like what I need to do is like I need to switch that. I
yeah,
need to make it so that I like really care and believe about the people that I'm working with first, and then any money I make comes as a side effect.
yeah,
And that was it. And that was like, and I thought about like, well, let me think about who I'm in. Like these hyperlocal news publishers that I work with, like, what are they doing? And I'm like, well, they're working to serve their communities,
yeah,
right? They're like shining their little light in their community. And in the case of a publisher who said they wouldn't be in business if it wasn't for Broadstreet, um, that was a community of 300,000 people.
yeah,
And that's like 300,000 people who were getting, the updates on like the town council meetings and the school board
yeah,
meetings. And like that little light was burning because of Broad Street. And then I was like, well, how many of those little publishers do we serve? And at that point, it was like maybe 250. And then I kind of just realized like across the whole country, there were like 250 little communities that were like, a little better informed because of what Broad Street did. And I
yeah,
started to say like, oh man, like this is why I do what I do. Like I do what I do to like kind of lift them up and let them in turn lift up their community. And then like over time that really matured and developed. And
yeah,
I started to think like, no, like I really need to I need to probably be a little clearer on how I can help them do what they do for their community, like how they can lift others up. I started to get into these like fundamental things and I was like, that's why I do what I do. Like
yeah,
I do what I do, like at one level to help these publishers serve their communities, right? To help make their local democracies better, to make overall all of our, democracies better. But like what I'm really doing is like I'm really helping other people light the way for other people.
right.
So there was like, so the point is, I got into a place where I realized, like, oh, this is what I'm really doing. This is what I'm good at. Like, not only have I been doing it, I'm actually good at it. Imagine how good I would be if I actually became self aware
Come
and
on.
focused on that specifically.
Yeah, bro.
And so that
So
became
good.
why I did what I did. So it has to actually start with the person who's the leader. It has to start with the leader. The leader has to understand their why because they can't help anyone else that they're leading understand their why if the leader doesn't understand their why and
Yeah,
really believe it and say, this is something I would do whether I got paid or not. That's not a joke. A lot of people say, like, oh, do what you would love, do it if nobody were going to. That's real.
yeah,
That's real. You should do. It should be something that when you're 100 years old, you'd look back and say, this was a perfectly valid and useful way of spending my time, and I do it that way every single time.
yeah,
You know.
yeah, man.
So that was the origin to kind of finding out like my own personal why, and then how it graduated into building a great team around it. Once you have that burning center and you have the conviction, you're burning, you're shining, then it's so much easier to attract other people who want to be a part of that mission.
Yeah. I love how you put that, man. You start burning, you got to get yourself on fire, and that light draws other people to you. That
Hmm.
light and that heat and that intensity draws other people.
Hmm.
It's funny because when I interviewed John Garrett, you remember he just said, I don't know, how are you so successful? I don't know. I just end up surrounded by these amazing people.
These
And
amazing
it's like,
process people.
yeah,
Those are
yeah. It's like you don't just end up, right? You don't
yeah.
just end up surrounded with those people. You to some degree draw those people
You
through
send
what,
out, yeah, you send out a signal and people pick it up through the noise. And like
yeah,
they don't realize it, but they're making those little like movements toward you.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of different ways that people put it. They say you attract your tribe. They say signal and noise, but like that's what happens. Like when you find your own like personal truth and you repeat that and you say it loud, like people hear it and the right people kind of make their way over to it. It sounds like really abstract, but like that's
It does.
what happens,
Right.
you know? And then you end up attracting the right people who are, supposed to be part of that mission.
Yeah, and I think most people that are going to end up watching this will understand that the prospect of creating a healthy and thriving workplace culture isn't easy, and that it's actually a byproduct of health. It's a
Hmm.
byproduct of health in the leader to some degree, right? Because
Hmm.
not that you can't have healthy people that work for you and be unhealthy, but in order for the whole thing to just slap and everything to come together, the leader has to have that self-awareness and sense of why they're doing what they're doing. And if they have that clarified why, other people are going to latch onto that and it's going to feed their why,
Right.
right?
I think one of the things that can be really helpful is like the leader doesn't sometimes like if it's like a middle manager or somebody who's like a leader of a group of people within an organization, sometimes it's just seeing the real power and benefit to like what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so that it's kind of like most of the people who work at a company end up working there initially because it's a job and they need to eat. Like
Yes.
there's a very
Yes.
transactional, at a very baseline, there's a transactional layer of like why they're working there in the first place.
Yeah.
And but in the same way that I kind of had that journey and realized that like, hey, I did it for money, but then I actually ended up the reason I stayed in it was for everyone else.
Yeah.
Right. You do it like I got into it for myself and then I realized that it was really about everyone else and that actually made me
Yeah.
want to keep doing it.
Wow.
And so in the same way, like the people who work at our companies are people who got into it for the job.
Yeah.
But then eventually like they might have the opportunity to realize whether they do it alone or whether they do it through like the aid of someone who's like a mentor or a boss or somebody who's further along at them to kind of see that for themselves that like
Yeah.
it's about the customers but it's not about it's about the individuals who are at the customers, it's about the people on our team and like where they're all collectively going because
Yeah.
as a leader, like I think what the one of the most important things that we can do, like a true leader, is when you can synthesize, like you can take a look at where everybody wants to go.
Yeah.
You can take a look at like, the problems that your customers are working on, the thing they're really passionate about. They're passionate about serving their community, what they need to do to serve that community. But then you can look at your team and you can say like, I understand like what they're really passionate about, like not just what they enjoy working on, but like, this person's trying to pay down their credit card debt, and this
Yeah, bro.
person's trying to get a kid through college, and this
Yeah.
person's going through some real like health struggles right now, and this person's like, and if you can like actually see that point, that destination that serves as like that common point that you can get them all toward, if you
Yeah.
can synthesize many people's needs and bring them all there to a place where like those things are being, they're achieving resolution, like that's what leadership is. It's saying
Yeah.
like there's a better place, and it's a better place for you and you and you and you and you and all the people, all your employees and all your customers, employees,
Yeah.
and say there's this common place that if we get to together, we're all going to be better off.
Yeah, man.
And you can communicate that vision, that you can evangelize the vision,
Yeah.
right? That you can recruit the people who are going to help all of you get there together, and
Yeah.
that you're going to make sure that you have all of the resources, the money, and the how you're going to get there. That's what a leader does.
Yeah. Yeah. I watched your face like light up as you were saying that, dude. So that's like now and it's interesting because this all does come together. Like what you talk about, and even that sales webinar we did, the sales strategy is called lift.
Hmm.
And you keep using the word lift, right? And so you've actually found this deep clarity that just holds true in all these different arenas, right? It holds true with, well, why are we in business? It's to lift clients, right? Like it's to lift them.
Hmm.
That's great. What? Well, then why do I have employees? It's to lift them, right? It's to lift. And when people believe that, when they believe, oh, okay, Kenny's here to lift me. I work here, but he doesn't treat me like a robot. He's here to lift me. And once they believe that, it's like, oh, I'm all in, right? I'm all
Yeah.
in being a part of something like that where we all get to contribute to go, I'll follow, let's go, right?
Yeah. And it's very like the way that happens is very like it seems like it's kind of like a mystery. Like how do you get employees to like think that their boss like actually cares about them? Like that for a
Yeah.
lot of people that, or for some people, I guess that would probably seem astounding.
Yeah.
And also like the thing is both my parents were union employees and like so they're used to having this mindset like company does not give a shit about you.
Yeah.
Um it's like it's 9 to 5. As soon as that clock hits 5 o'clock, you get
Yeah.
out of there. You cut.
Yes.
If they ask you to stay a minute later, you tell them hell no, and you get out of there. So that's the kind of mindset that I grew up with. Like the company
Right.
does not care about you. They might occasionally invite you in to their little what my dad called rah rah. That little like seminar they have, or they have like a motivational speaker, or they do the Six Sigma or whatever the new thing is, and they try to get everybody all jazzed up. But it's that union mindset um, you do not stay a minute later.
Right.
And but like going back to like how that happens, for me, it's kind of this realization that I think you hit in terms like maturity as a leader is that you get to that realization where it's not they're just ancient principles, right?
Yeah.
It's treat other people the way that you'd want to be treated. That the
Mm-hmm.
leader is the servant. That
Mm-hmm.
like every there's even like there are these like ancient hints that like the people that like we lead and we take care of, like there's this kind of like there's this give and take.
Yeah.
There's like breathe in, breathe out among the people that we not to get too like, you know, esoteric, but when it really getting practical now, if you really want if you want your employees to like, kind of understand that like you really care about them, well, the first thing that you could do and like the first question in like that lift acronym when you're selling to someone
Yeah.
else, like all you have to do is listen.
Come on, buddy.
That's it.
Yeah. Here it
So
comes. Yeah.
so stop talking and just ask them like, "Hey, listen, when when you work here or you think about working here and like I don't know what, like how you think about your whether you're going to work here in a year or 2 years, but like I'll just say like, I really like having you on the team and I want to know like what matters to you. Like when you
Yeah.
think about like, a year goes by, 2 years go by, 5 years go by, like what would you want to be true about the next 5 years? Like what needs to happen, in terms of your growth as someone who works at the company? What needs to happen in terms of like maybe the money that you make?
Yeah.
And what needs to happen. And it's funny, like those answers are completely different than anybody. Like a lot of times when we think of what people's answers would be, like it'd be like, oh, well, I want to make $1 bajillion, I want to be the CEO. And that's not actually not true at all.
Mm-hmm.
When you listen, you find out and you kind of get to that place where you're just having a real conversation. You
Yeah.
find out that people have very like reasonable and practical like needs and wants. And one of the biggest needs that you can do a giant favor for your employees in eliminating,
Yeah.
you can eliminate uncertainty.
Yeah.
That's it. A lot of times like the reason employees like leave a company is that they felt like they had to take it into their own hands. That
Yeah.
like people didn't care enough about them, so they had to steer their own ship and like
Yeah.
go take that $5,000 raise somewhere else. Like people really do that. They'll leave a job that they otherwise liked for a $5,000 raise somewhere else.
Yeah.
So like and maybe that 5,000 like really mattered for some reason. So when you listen, you say like what needs to happen? And if someone like if you're really in a place where you're listening to someone, like all of the important stuff that you need to hear comes out. And for
Yeah.
some people to say, listen, like money isn't even like I had a employee tell me this the other day, like money wasn't even like a really a concern. They're happy where they're at. They're like, what really matters to me right now is like just spending time with my family.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to so I'm like, okay, well, yeah, how can I lighten the load in that way on
Yeah.
them? And like for other people, it is like, for the head of household, maybe like the extra 10K a year
Yep.
is really gonna hit. So
Yeah.
there have been times where like when I found out that somebody was like kind of working through some debt or something like that, I'm like, how much money would you need to like not, to like it not be a concern? And it might only be like 5 or 10K over the year. And I'd be like,
Yep.
done. Even if I
Yep.
didn't have the money in the moment, I'll be like, you know what? In 6 months, like we'll have more customers. Like it's gonna be okay. I'll be like,
Yep.
done. And you make it happen. So it all starts with just listening. And
Yep.
if you figure out where your employees individually want to go, like right now I have one employee, like I know that they want a house and they want 5 kids. And obviously there's only some things I'm applicable to in
Yep.
that. But
Yeah.
if you find out what that is, then as every quarter and every year goes by, like I know I just got to be moving them toward that goal.
Yes.
I'm moving
Yeah.
my customers toward their goals. I'm moving my employees toward their goals. I like to think that I'm moving this industry in my small way toward where it wants to go, and that's what it is. It's just a lift, right?
Yeah.
It's just like
Yep.
it's literally the golden rule enacted at scale.
Come on, dude. Oh, there's so much there, man. And it's just and it's like you said, it's the ancient wisdom, right? It's the simple, it's the wisdom that sounds too simple to be true,
Yeah.
right? But it's there. Like, that's probably why you and I resonate over The Go-Giver, right? The Go-Giver is the same kind of book. It's very simple, right? It's talking
Hmm.
about make it your job to add value.
Hmm.
Like add
Yeah.
value first. Add value. Add exponential value. Go crazy adding value, and it
Hmm.
will come back to you, right? Like it
Yeah.
like like it will come back to you in many ways, including compensation, right? Like
Hmm.
that's what the book is basically saying.
All of the most important things that like me or you could possibly say, like they're not our own. They're,
Yep.
they're all just like so obvious.
Yep.
And I kind of think that like I literally say, to the team sometimes like the most important things like that you could know are things that you already know.
Yeah.
Like it's just stuff that like maybe you forgot and you have to be
Yep.
reminded of. Oh, treat other people the way that you're right. Listen, lift somebody. That's what a sale is. It's not whether you can make the sale. It's whether you could under like solve the problem that they have. And the first step is understanding what the problem is to begin with, right?
Yes.
So simple. But
Yeah.
it's funny is like humans were pretty forgetful,
Yeah.
so we forget some of the craziest obvious things. And I think it's like sometimes I think like all of life is there just to kind of like help and reaffirm us remembering the things that we kind of knew to begin with.
Yeah, man. Yeah, there's certainly a lot of that in my own experience, like the holding of those true and beautiful things in the mind and the heart, um, to become the wellspring of action, right?
Hmm.
Like, see, I talk about this a lot. Like, we've been conditioned a lot of times to be doers, and that our value comes from our doing as opposed to our being. We
Hmm.
always do this, bro. We get way way deeper than what's on the schedule.
Hmm.
But like the idea of being informing doing, right, versus just doing being the point.
Hmm.
Because we've all experienced where you're just doing something by rote,
Yeah.
just because you're supposed to do it, and it's never going to carry the power of when you're acting out conviction and you're acting out who you are, right? And you've actually done the work to to um, to grow and to be
Hmm.
transformed. But there's no shortcut to that. And I love how you're saying, like, yeah, man, like it's nice to give you a checklist of all the things that you can do to be a better leader and to create a healthy culture, but it starts with growing as a
Hmm.
human,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, if they wanted a checklist, I mean, the practical checklist is like understand why you're doing it,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And when you get really excited about that, then basically communicate that to to the rest of the team. And like I always tell the team, like if you're working at a place that you enjoy the people that you work with, that you're
Yep.
taking care of personally and professionally, that
Yep.
you're working on some really good problem that's solving something for someone else, like the newspaper industry in our case,
Yep.
and you're having fun. Like it doesn't all have to be like sweat and toil. Like,
Yeah.
like, oh, this is fun. But like, you can actually have fun and joke around and laugh and like have a great time. Like like why would you want to work anywhere else? That's
Yeah,
like the
man.
greatest thing. You got all four of the really big ones. Fun was a little nice one sprinkled on top.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you'll find out that like, you got the right people on the team.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's like, I think it's actually most companies that have like a truly great workplace culture, and not just like, foosball tables and stuff.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
truly great, like would go to bat for each other. That's fundamentally what they're doing. There's an understanding and an empathy among the team, and an understanding that we're working on something really good, that we're all learning every
Yep.
day. We're learning from each other,
Yep.
that we're all taken care of. We're working on this common goal. Like that's actually what binds it all together. All the great companies, like that's what they did. But
Yeah.
it all starts with the leader finding out their why and then listening to make sure they're synthesizing all of that. That's it. That is the formula.
I love it, dude. And part of that, so the person that's like, because to some degree there's a challenge here, because it's like, all right, you want to give your employees the impression that you actually care about them. Step one is care about them.
Yeah.
Care about them. And the person listening could say, well, what if I don't? And be honest in that, right? Like, what if I'm not there? What if I'm not there at this point? And I've got all these factors pressing down on me, and what if I'm not there to where I really can be all in this, magical world that you two are living in.
That's
And
that's a great place to be, actually, because the first
yeah,
step is like just self-awareness. Like you just said, the other day, like isn't that it?
yeah, yeah, I think so. And I also think that if you want to fan the flames of caring, if you want to give yourself the opportunity to care, then listening is the tool. I think you're 100% right about that, right? Like
Hmm.
listening, how can I nurture you unless I know you? How can I want to nurture you unless I know your story,
Hmm.
right? Like I don't know how people do it without knowing. And so the idea of
That's a great
listening,
point.
yep,
Don't you like just hearing someone else's, like if you took the time to listen, and
yep,
like there's a really good chance you would hear something that you thought you could help with.
yeah.
And that's like, if someone's in that position where they're like, I don't know if I care about the employees that much. And then it's just like, well, do you know them then?
Yeah.
Like, if you knew your employees, and I heard someone said, I was talking to somebody who they were actually talking about their ring. And let me go find the quote because it was so good, and it hit when I heard it. Oh, to be loved is to be known.
Come on. Yes.
That
Yeah,
was
yeah.
it.
Oh yeah.
And so you're not going to really care about somebody that you don't really know. And if you
Yeah.
take the time to get to know them, and all of us are worth knowing, then there's a really good chance, in fact, it's pretty much definite that you're going to care about them and
Yeah.
individually.
Yeah, man. And this might sound to some people like just Mary Poppins, like like fantasy stuff, but stick with us, man. Stick with us because I think, if you start listening to some of these interviews, Tim that I just interviewed said some very similar and powerful things, but in very different ways. Um, so as we're closing up, because I actually have a hard stop coming up here pretty soon. I love the idea of lift. I love the idea of lift as applied to business, and then lift as applied internally to your team. And I love the idea of authentic listening being the basis upon which you build a
Hmm.
caring relationship in which your employees feel taken care of. Um, what are some practical ways that you care for your employees? Because I know some people are looking for ideas. Like, okay, well, I love this, and I'm kind of on this journey. Are there any more practical things I can throw into the mix to show that I care, or to increase the well-being of my people?
Yeah, I think the most important thing that you can do, I mean, is like if you can do that's the most practical thing. Set up interviews with every single employee that you have under
Yeah,
your leadership, and have that conversation, literally. And it only has to be a half-hour conversation. If you
yeah,
don't want to do it, then like if a true leader will be open to doing that. So your first step is to go through each individual employee and understand that over the next year, 3 years, 5 years, like where do they want to be professionally, financially,
yeah,
um, what do they really like about their job? What are some
yeah,
things that they'd like prefer maybe not to do? Like everyone has to do
yeah,
something they don't want to do.
yeah, yeah,
What do they want to learn,
yeah,
right? Where do they want to grow? When they're 100 years and they look back, like how do they see themselves? Like
Yeah.
that's a question I ask all the time. And like I mean for some people it can sound I guess Mary Poppins. I think it's really important. Like
Yeah.
where are you going in the big thing? And a lot of people like, some really important stuff comes out of that.
Yeah.
And so that's one way of doing it, but also one of the biggest ways you can help your employees is when you add other people to the team that so when you're recruiting, I do the same thing. If I'm going to potentially if I really think somebody would be a great fit for the team, I use that same lift process.
Yeah.
Like when I reach out, I'm actually having a call in a half hour with somebody that is at another company
Yep.
and I'm just gonna ask the questions like, "Hey, is everything fantastic, or there's some things to be desired? Like anything you
Yep.
wish was a little bit better?"
Yep.
Um, in your ideal, like, if you were to entertain a next place, what would it have to look like? How much money
Yep.
would you have to make? Like, what would tell me what it looks like? And I just do a whole lot of question asking. And if I
Exactly.
have a place, if that landing pad that I thought I had matches up with what, guess what? Boom. They are probably highly likely going to end up working with me.
Yeah.
But it all starts with listening. So you want another practical application?
Yep.
Recruiting for the mission, it all starts with listening.
Come on, buddy. Ah,
That's it.
dude.
Is it like look for it everywhere. Every
Yeah.
time you're in a situation where like you think this is going to be a difficult conversation or you have to like just turn around and say like what questions could I ask them to get to know more that might figure out what like some common ground or a happier place for both of us would be. Just ask
Yes.
questions and listen. That's it. That's about as practical as it gets.
It's so good, man. It's so good. It's so practical. It's beautiful. Um, and I've loved spending time with you today, man. Thank you for always just giving your best, man. You always give your best stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm
Every time
happy
we hang
to.
out.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun. It always is.
And thank you everybody for listening and we'll see you next time.